Hello, good morning.
Hi.
Katrina Law. Oh my God, man. How are you?
I am excellent today. It's the day after Halloween and my voice is a little gone. It was an intense night of trick-or-treating, so we're
Are
good.
you exhausted from hanging out with your little one?
Not from hanging out with my little one, but from just kind of Halloween in general. It was making the costumes, and at the last minute I decided um my mom wasn't gonna be Yoda and she was gonna be BB-8, and I had kind of given up on that costume, but then I was like, you know what? It's too good. So at the 11th hour, I whipped together
Did
BB-8.
you make it? I
Yeah, we
saw a
made it.
picture of it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so we got one of those lanterns, and of course we had to put some weights in it to keep it down. Those paper lanterns, and I painted it, and then we ended up using a metal bowl from the kitchen and kind of
No kidding. I saw a picture of it. It looks amazing.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun. She had no
Oh,
arms.
I had no idea
She
you
was
made
very
that
vulnerable.
yourself. That's really incredible. Um, so Katrina, I know you from, lots of things. I'm gonna nerd out and say I was a big fan of Spartacus, like, 10 years ago. I definitely that was like a time period of my life where I loved that style of film, and I just thought, like 300 came out and all that, and it was just like
Yeah.
so cool to me. And then oddly enough, my wife from Legends of Tomorrow.
Yes, we have a long history. Your
You
wife.
have a long history, which I think is awesome. And of course, you're on the mothership. You're on NCIS.
Yes.
How long have you been doing NCIS?
This is my fourth season. So
Oh, wow.
you would think that's being on a show for a long time, but being how the show has been on for over 2 decades, I'm the newbie
Yeah,
still.
of course, of course. Now you pulled me aside when I started my show, and because we had Katie in common, you knew I was having a baby, and you kind of knew the workload going into it, and I had no idea what I was in for. I think Katie was 7.5 months pregnant at that time, and you pulled me aside and you gave me some advice, and you said, just hold on. You're in for a ride. Enjoy all of it. Soak up being at home. Enjoy being a present father, and just enjoy the work. You already got the job.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how much that meant to me as a friend and as like somebody who is jumping into such a big franchise, because it's daunting. We step into these characters, and as you said, it's a franchise that has been running for over 2 decades. That's incredible, right?
Yes, it's insane. I think there's maybe two or three shows that have done this, and yours could be next. So you never know. You know what you're in for.
Let's hope, man. Let's hope. So thank you for that. That meant a lot to me, and thank you for doing this because mental health in general, for a long time has had a stigma. Movember, who I'm partnering up with to raise money, kind of across the board, from physical ailments that affect men, from prostate cancers and things like that, to for me, I think mental health is something that I like to focus on because um, it's important, and things need to change, and suicide rates for men are almost 2 or 3 times that of women.
I'm so I'm not trying to laugh at the suicide comment. But my daughter,
She knocking at the door?
she's
Go say hi. Bring her in.
oh, we're gonna leave her off screen because I don't post her here.
Got you. Got you.
But
Got you.
give me a second.
Got you. Got you. Got you. No worries.
Perfect time. I'm so sorry. You're like heart. I'm like, oh gosh.
No problem. Hoping to get a glimpse of the cutie pie. I like your Mayfly poster in the background. What a cool room. Got the drum kit. I like all the masks.
This is gonna be you soon, by the way.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It was Katie yesterday. Katie just kept wandering in.
Oh, well, yeah.
She's not a child. Uh,
What's her excuse?
well, it's Katie. Um, so I'll jump back into that. I mean,
Sorry about that.
yeah, no worries. So like, just men's mental health. I mean, we work in an industry where we kind of wear our heart on our sleeves, and there's a vulnerability that we kind of get celebrated that we use as a tool to do what we do. And I've known people, and I've had friends who I've lost to suicide and addictions and substance abuse, and it felt right to try and take this opportunity while I'm working to be able to try and have the bigger conversation. So thank you so much. I like the idea of like the generational, gaps in question, and kind of like getting into that first, because you know my parents weren't like they weren't an advocate for therapy. There was something about therapy and looking within to them that kind of like scared them, I think. And I've talked to people who grew up in great families, whose parents were big advocates for therapy. What was it like for you? What is your kind of opinion on like the generational gaps, and like what sets our generation kind of aside from the ones before us?
I think I was a bit like you, where
Mhm.
um I think our entire generation is the same, where we just didn't talk about therapy. Mental health wasn't an issue, it wasn't a topic. You don't take sick days because you're not feeling great. You suck it up and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you get on with it. And I'm from the East Coast, where I feel like that's even more, where it's just literally like, like brush it off. Oh, well, just yeah, you just don't talk about it. You make jokes about it. I think that's the way we got through most of our traumas in from where I grew up. You joke. Somebody says something, it kind of goes a little too deep, and somebody next to you is immediately going to make a joke out of it, because we don't go past the surface. We keep
Sure,
it light, and we keep it fluffy, and that's how we deal with pain. And once you kind of ping on something that's a little below the surface, everybody that everybody senses what it is. They've all been there. Everybody knows collectively what that pain is that they're talking about, but nobody wants to talk about it. So therefore the joke comes in. And I'm very much that person. I find myself making jokes about things, and then there's something really healthy about that as well. So I'm not knocking, and I'm just saying that this is how we talked about our mental health. We laughed about it when we finally stopped crying about it. So,
sure. So we use humor. I think that's a natural reflex that we have as humans. We use humor to deflect, things that may touch us emotionally. And I agree with you. I'm from the East Coast as well, and there was, kind of very blue collar, working class kind of way to like, after work you crack a beer and you have your dinner and you throw on the
watch the
tube.
game, and that's
And
that.
yeah, exactly, and you do it all again, and it becomes this kind of like this rat race, a little bit. I think when you're just like you're you're working to live, or you're living to work, uh,
Yeah.
because look, at the end of the day, like you just want to put food on the table for your family. You just you want everybody else to kind of be happy.
Yeah.
When you've worked a 9 to 5 for 8 hours, or 10 hours, or whatever it is that you're trying to do, and then you come home to your family and your kids and your wife, or whomever it may be, the last thing you want to do is be like, oh, my day was
Yeah.
brutal, and you don't want
Wasn't necessarily joy in your job. So you did that job because it's what you had to do. You had to pay the insurance, the mortgage, the rent, whatever your situation was. Put food on the table, kids' clothes. You come home, you decompress by having dinner that's already made for you. You watch the game, and then you live for the weekends. At least that's how it was
yeah,
where people didn't care what the weather was Monday through Friday, but
yeah,
come Saturday and Sunday,
yeah,
what's again, like what are we doing? So I don't know how healthy that is either, to only have 2 days
sure.
to
Europe seems to have a little, they're making progress in that regard, aren't they?
yeah.
There's parts of Europe. So, nowadays we have this technology, we have the internet, we have, self-help podcasts, we have all these things that seem to be gaining traction, which is great. Um, what so you've got your husband, Keith. You've been together for a long time,
Well, a very long time.
very long time. Um, So you've got somebody special in your life, and if you guys have been together for a long time, there's, everybody has things in their relationships and their lives. I lost my mom in November, and Katie was a huge help to get me through that. I dealt with it in mentally, I think, in some unhealthy ways. But when I was able to figure out a way to talk about it, she was there for me. Is mental health like an important aspect in your life to talk about, um, with him, for the idea that the generation that comes after us, the little guy who might date your daughter in the future, you hope that his head's going to be screwed on right as well.
It's an interesting dynamic that my husband and I have, Keith. When we first got into the relationship, he was the communicator. He was the guy who was open, very open with his feelings. He wears his heart on his sleeve, still does. Which I think is why I was so attracted to him in the first place, was because I'm used to these Coast dudes who, just kind of like everybody bros up and doing whatever. He opened a door for me and I was like, what is this? Like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
But he was actually the one who taught me how to communicate and how to actually say my feelings. And I remember, because we've all had our stuff from our childhood. Okay, so let me just premise this whole like conversation that we're having. It's very difficult for me to talk about men's mental health because I feel like I think obviously I'm a woman, a female, and I'm coming at it from my point of view of observation.
sure. Yeah,
And I think one of the things that comes along with that is if you make an observation, of course, somebody's going to buck up and be like, well, that's not necessarily true. So like I have a hard time trying to figure out what it is for them. So everything that I'm going to be saying is obviously from my experiences of how I perceive men.
of
And
course.
um growing up, you didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't like things that were too girly because the boys would shut you down. The boys would make you feel stupid about it. The boys. So if you suddenly bucked up, you were basically um like basically like a bitch whore or a slut, essentially.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
your opinions were too strong, or if you expressed your emotions, you were needy, or you were clingy, or you were
Mhm.
too dependent. So I learned to kind of close everything up. And then when I went through my issues as a kid, I closed up even more. So I ended up developing this thing in my throat where if I got anxious or I got emotional, my throat would close up and I literally couldn't breathe. And all of a sudden, my first breath in would be like this inhale. So when I got together with Keith, it would be something as stupid as, babe, can you not leave the towels on the floor? And I'd be like, oh, drama, I'm doing something wrong. And then I wouldn't talk about it. And I remember having to sit there and in my head, I'm going, open your mouth, open your mouth, open your mouth, unclench your fist, unclench your fist. And he's just kind of pouring his heart out to me. And I'm just going, just open your mouth, unclench your fist. And that was my entire goal, was to get this to happen because that's how I internalized trauma. And I feel like a lot of the men in my life that I grew up with, that's how they did it as well. And that vulnerability to open up and just speak was so hard. And I feel like I watched a lot of the boys that I grew up with go through the same things. And like you, I've very recently lost friends to suicide and to another one to a overdose. And I remember them kind of starting to talk about things that may have happened to them in the past. And immediately everybody started making jokes and they essentially wouldn't let them speak. And now, because I'd been in LA for 20 years and working on myself and with Keith, and who's been helping me figure out how to open my mouth and be able to speak, I could see that he desperately wanted to say something. And to this day, I'm kind of like, was he trying to say something? So
Right.
it makes me go, had he had men around him who were able to communicate better, who felt more comfortable communicating, who didn't think, no, we need to shut this down. This is too horrible. We don't talk about these things, that maybe he would still be here. So for me, I have to thank someone like Keith, who is so healthy. And not to say he doesn't have his own issues, but compared to me and the people that I grew up with, I'm just like, ah, this is what communication is. This is what being able to say your piece means. And had we grown up with that, maybe a few more of my friends would still be here. So
Sure.
yeah, sorry.
No, thank you for sharing. That's what I thank you so much for sharing that. That is everything I could ever hope that this conversation could be, is about being able to open up and being able to share. And thank you for that. Um, that means a lot. Thank you. And thank you to Keith. You know, thank you for everything that he's done, um, to be able to open up and you know, spread some love and make it okay to talk about things and push communication. Um, you know, we really do rely on the people in our lives to help us, whether we know it or not. Katie helped me in so many ways to be able to trust a partner and rely on a partner. And it took a lot for me to let go of a lot of things when I met her. And I wouldn't be the person sitting here today with you. And I wouldn't be the person sitting here doing this if it wasn't for her. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very, very grateful to Keith, and I'm very grateful to you. So thank you.
Yeah, Keith and Katie. I
Keith
don't
and
know what we
Katie.
did. I don't know what we did right, but we did. Well done, you and I.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Um, oh, that's great. Thank you so much for that. So I guess the idea behind this is we want to make a difference. You know, like I've thought about joining men's support groups, to try and find people to talk to. Um, you know, I stopped drinking 4 years ago. You know, AA has a multitude of programs, that are great support programs. I'm not, an Al-Anon member, but you know, it's a great group to be able to reach out to. But what I want out of this, like in the long run, is like I want to be able to turn to my friends, like similarly to the story that you just brought up, and I want to be able to bring up an emotional topic that might be bothering me or close to me, and be able to have a good conversation about it. Be able to have a good conversation just like this, where people aren't too scared to get into something a little deeper. Because I love it. I started doing this only a few days ago. I've been putting it together for months, but I started with my interviews a few days ago. And I can't tell you how rewarding it is to actually be able to have a deeper conversation with people. It's 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 amazing. I've
Yeah.
I've cried multiple times over the past few days. Um, you know, I've learned things about friends that I've known for years that I had no idea that they struggled with. And it's brought us closer. And I think it does make the world a better place. Um, when it comes to your own mental health, because look, you know, we're advocating for men's mental health in this conversation. That's my umbrella thing. But the thing is if you peel off our skin and you take away the fact that you guys can do this incredible thing and make babies, and your miracles and women are incredible, you know, we're all kind of the same flesh and bone, right? So like, what is it that you do, you know, if you don't mind sharing, to kind of stay mentally sound? You know, obviously Keith is a huge sounding board for you, and you know, if we could all be lucky enough to have a Keith in our lives, you know, that would be awesome. But you know, from you know, staying active to reading to, um you know, what is it that kind of keeps you grounded in your life?
Um, I think on the purely physical side, you and I were very fortunate that we are able-bodied humans.
Yeah.
And so we have that luxury of being able to say, oh, let's go work out, let's go run, let's go, stretch or go to yoga. I do jujitsu, and it's um
Cool.
because I get all of my aggression out and I'm learning a skill at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. So I definitely notice I recently hurt my knee, so I was out for about 5 months and I noticed my mental state and my anxiety levels starting to go up. And I remember about, what was it, 3 weeks ago, I pretty much had a complete panic attack trying to do chores because, our shooting schedules are so crazy that I knew that if I didn't get these chores done, I wasn't going to get to them for the next month. And the the mentality that goes like, the messier your life is. Well, for me, the messier my world is how busy I am. And
Mhm.
I realized I just had to stop, take a little break, and just kind of go, you know what? Let's go try out jujitsu again. Maybe my knee's better. And I went back to class, and sure enough, by the time I walked out, I was like floating on cloud nine. I was like, this is great. This is exactly what I just needed a release. I needed a physical release
Yep.
of, and just of energy, but also of endorphins. So for me,
Mhm.
that's number one. This one's harder for me, but the daily gratitude,
Sure.
you know, I for me, I have a 40-minute drive to work, so do a couple of things, but I try to make sure that I spend a good 5 minutes of just thinking of every single thing in my entire life that I'm grateful for. And it normally starts with family, then it usually goes to me and my health, and then it goes to little things like this car that I'm driving and how nice is it? And how nice is it that that person let me enter and not
Sure.
cut me off? Like, just all those different things. And I think it's a practice that it's rewiring yourself instead of thinking, oh, I have 40 minutes, I got to drive to work. You just think, let's start being grateful. And I think eventually it starts to kick in. I don't do it every day. Um, like I said, it's practice. So we get there. And then I think my daughter, I think you and I have that luxury of having beautiful children. Wow, what a life changer. Um, so from I can say this about Keith and my daughter. I saw him do a huge mental shift of, what is my legacy? What is my purpose? What am I doing? What do I have to leave behind? How is she going to see me? And I don't know if you're going through that or if you have gone through it, or maybe you just kind of like, what is my life cause and what am I leaving to my daughter, and just puts everything into perspective. Um, and I think my daughter has helped me with that aspect, but it's just continually reassessing your perspective in life. And I think this is where a lot of therapy helps with certain people. For myself, I haven't found a therapist that I like, so I don't necessarily go to therapy, but I do have great friends who are willing to listen to me, and I spread it out so I'm not dumping on one person the entire
Sure. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But the perspective of, yes, you can complain about things. We're human and we're going to bitch about certain things and we're going to have bad days and good days and everything. But overall, so thankful to be here. So thankful for my family. So thankful for this. Is this annoying? Yes. But could it be worse? Yes. And
Mhm.
continually checking. I have a piece of hair in my mouth. Ah, right. Um, so yeah, I think that's for me the mental balance checklist of just kind of going, what are all the beautiful things that I have, and trying to think about the beautiful things more so than the negative things. And if I do have a negative thing that pops up, it's more about, okay, be kind, forgive yourself for if it's something that you did, or just be gentle on yourself. I think that was a big thing in my life at one point, was just, I'm so gentle and careful with other people, or at least I try to be, but yet I would be so harsh on myself. So trying to find gentleness in my perspective of myself, including the physical of looking in the mirror to, maybe, was I a good mom today? Like, just little things like that. So I think
Yeah.
the whole gambit of emotions that come through.
We certainly have a
Because
lot
now
of.
I have one more person coming into the room.
Yeah. 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 No. No. No.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
We can
Wait,
we can wrap this up if you got to run.
no, give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
If
All right.
you're okay. Just keep
All right. Okay. Okay.
welcome to
Okay. Go.
family
Go.
life.
Go.
Okay.
Go. 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 I'm gonna eat my breakfast while she's gone. We'll be right back.
Okay.
You're back?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right, all right, all right.
Sorry, I have my mom and my dad and my daughter and a friend here from New Zealand and Keith and
No, thank you. I mean, I know how busy you are. It's crazy.
no, I just it's sometimes your parents don't understand what a Zoom call is.
No, I get it. I get it. Trust me.
Wait, you're not physically at work. What do you mean?
I still gotta work. I still got stuff to do. I still got some things, man. Um, okay, so to wrap up, physical outlets,
Mm-hmm.
way to get endorphins, um, finding people that you can talk to, whether they be friends or family that are
Yeah.
willing to listen. I think you're right. You brought something up that it's important to like respect your friend's space too, and like not dump all on one person, or at least recognize how much you're dumping at one time, so you don't overuse that outlet.
Yeah.
Um, and and obviously the gratitude. Gratitude, I think, is a big one because it does remind us, it grounds us, and it lets us hit the reset button when life does feel like it's becoming a lot. And
Yeah.
and loving yourself,
Yeah.
being trying to be easy on yourself, because at the end of the day, we are only human, and we are all trying to do our best. We are, and at the end, like that's all we can do. And sometimes we just need a little help from our friends. So,
Yeah.
you
There
know,
is something, not to completely extend this, but there is something about limiting the amount that you dump onto somebody. And sometimes you can't help it, especially if like an issue is new or but I find, especially in our industry, like, right, like the I didn't get the part, I didn't do this, I wasn't good enough. The whole thing of like, why aren't I working, blah, blah, blah. And I think that has
self-worth.
it's well, it's self-worth, but I also think it's if you if you focus too much on the negative and you're constantly there is also a danger of talking about your feelings too much. I think like it's as much as I'm an advocate for yes, talk about it, have these conversations. There is something about going, I'm going to tell my story over and over and over again, or whatever my perspective is, especially if it's not a positive one or one that you've actually really thought about, because then that becomes your narrative, that becomes your sob story, and then you become the victim and you stay in this perpetual state. And
Cycle, yeah.
like we're like, let's do like a shallow one, dating. Why don't I date? No, I'm dating. Like
Sure.
I keep getting these guys, and you're just like, well, maybe it's not like guys, maybe it's you and what you're looking for.
Because it's over and
Maybe,
over and over. You see that?
yeah, so like maybe if you kind of like take a step back and instead of, kind of going into this victim mentality, maybe like taking a step back and looking at you and what you might be adding, which I think is the hardest part about that, is going, what am I doing that might be making the situation stay or get worse or just never change?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that people do find in therapy. And that if you have friends who are grounded, and hopefully you're not just in an echo chamber
Mhm.
of people who are going to be like, oh, girl, you're right. It's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe. So
Yeah.
I think that's also an important thing, is like, you have to find your friends, but you also have to find people that actually give good advice. Yes.
You're right. You're right. I mean, come on.
So I don't know, I've found that a lot with some of the people who I've watched really struggle, is that they are continual victims. And I've been a victim, I've done that myself. So I recognize it very quickly in other people, where you don't release, you just keep honing it into a sharper knife of,
Yeah.
this is my story. So I think that's something to,
Well, also, it's like, what's it called when like you project, like people make vision boards, people make these things, right? But they do them for positive things.
yeah,
And then all that positive energy kind of creates this kind of you know, thing around them, and then then the good things start happening. That's the idea behind it, right?
yeah,
But if you're constantly living in a negative idea or concept of yourself, it's going to do the opposite. You're going to start manifesting this kind of negativity as well. So I think you're 100% right in having an outlet, but also balancing your mental outlook, and it's important to try and stay positive.
yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it
Hey,
works.
That's what we got. That's what we got people to lean on, and hopefully this whole thing makes a difference. And we get younger people, and even older people. Um, I'd love to have some of these deeper conversations with some of my family, and God, wouldn't that be cool? It would just be cool to just it just to catch on. But
Yeah.
we're doing something. We're going in the right direction. Now, NCIS premiered what, a few weeks ago, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
How are you liking Origins? Do you love it?
I'm loving Origins. Yes, I get to play one of the coolest characters I've ever played, and
I'm hearing good things about you. I can't even tell you the amount of positive feedback that I'm hearing about you and how wonderful you are on the show. And people are just loving your character, and they see that you're spot on. And I mean, I had all the faith in the world, so I'm not surprised, but
well, I appreciate that. I'm having the time of my life, at a time in my life where I couldn't be more grateful for everything that's happening. I'm very lucky, and um, you know, I'm happy that you're in my life too. And congratulations. And we got to get the dogs together. NCIS is on Mondays at 9 o'clock on CBS.
yes, and Origins at 10. We'll see you
And
right after.
Origins at 10.
We're so good for the CBS machine. Go team.
There we go. There we go. Katrina, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Some I love to keep, and enjoy your Friday.
Thank you. You do as well.
Bye.